Oh, there we are. Good evening, Wareham. Welcome to our third annual Candidates Debate, sponsored by your friends at Wareham Community Television. That would be us. Okay, the purpose of tonight's event is to give you, the voters, a closer look at this year's candidates for the Board of Selectmen. Again, this year, we have asked members of the local print media to be our panelists. To my immediate left, no, over there is Caitlin Flaherty, the writer for the Wareham Courier, and to her left is Bill Whalen, the new writer for the Wareham Week. You want to say anything, Bill?
Hello,
Hi.
Wareham, yeah.
You like Wareham?
I like it a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Cool, you'll stay, I hope. Okay. We like Wareham, too. But anyway, okay, as we did last year, we reached out to the voters of Wareham to provide the questions for our candidates that our panelists will be asking. And to protect the anonymity of those residents, we will not be telling who sent in what questions. Okay, and just a little aside to that is we did put the word out to people probably about 2 weeks ago, and we received about two questions. So the questions you'll be asked tonight, a couple of them are leftovers from last year's debate because they're still pertinent. And then some of them were brought in by the reporters themselves. Okay? And let's introduce the candidates. To my left, when did I do this from last time? Okay.
Last year's candidates?
No, these are, I changed the names on it. Okay.
To protect the candidates.
Our candidates for selectmen this year, on the left is Michael Freitz,
Good evening.
and the center is Peter Teitelbaum,
Good evening.
and on the far right is Judith Whiteside.
Hi, good evening.
Okay. So to proceed with how we're going to be running this thing, candidates will be given the opportunity to address each question and have 1 or 1.5 to 2 minutes to respond. Okay, we will alternate the candidate. The first person to ask the question, to answer, will be changed up as we go along. You'll figure it out as we go. Okay, some are very simple and requiring a simple, direct answer, while others may require more discussion. In those instances, and also if requested by a candidate, we will open the discussion to include a rebuttal period, or just, we're gonna stretch it out and let you guys make sure you say what you wanna say. Okay, we don't wanna shut anybody off just because of a clock. We do have a timekeeper, so if you look over to your right, in front of you over there, you'll see the red light will come on when your time is reached. You won't see that at home. Okay, now the first question, any questions?
How much is the time?
About 1.5 minutes.
Okay.
Or 2. What are you setting it
Oh,
for,
whatever.
Paul? 2. Okay, so 2. Okay, so let's rewind. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. It's not an exact science and no analog timer, but anyhow. Do you have any questions as to what we're going to do tonight? Okay, you guys ready to go?
Ready.
Okay, the first question, this was one of our newest questions sent in. We're throwing this out, I'm going to give this one out mainly for informational purposes, okay? Because we feel there's stuff happening and it's not really a debatable subject. So the writer wrote in and she was requesting what the status is or the chances of getting commuter rail to Wareham. And I know there's been a lot going on over the years, the track's being repaired, and there's been a lot of talk. And you guys want to take a shot at that one? Okay, we can start out.
Are we
Mike?
going in this order? You said?
Yeah, we'll start with you.
I personally worked for commuter rail on my early days in the railroad industry, and the chances is usually based on studies on population and whatnot in the surrounding communities in Wareham as well. And chances are, if there is a adequate facility that would house parking, because it's more than just Wareham, of course. You know, you have other cities and towns that would be utilizing a stop here. So, you know, it's not so much a selectman decision or a town decision. I mean, it is in the sense it would have to be approved by the town of Wareham, of course, but it's also based on what the state, you know, comes up with as far as is there adequate parking and that sort of issue. But would I love to see it? Sure. I mean, commuter rail definitely brings in, it definitely increases the tax revenue in the sense that other people will move to the area, and I think Wareham Wareham's a great town. I mean, it needs some work on it, but it's a great town. It's a great place to live, and so it would do a lot of good. But it's not a decision that is just solely by town officials. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Peter, do you have?
Yeah, this is a subject that I've been working on since I was elected a couple of years ago, in particular with Alan Slavin, who's always had an interest in bringing commuter rail to Wareham. I can tell you that at present, the legislature is in the process, we hope, of approving $75,000 as a grant to study a location for a commuter rail station in the town. We've had some preliminary conversations with the State Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Davey. We've also been dealing with Jody Ray, who works for the MBTA in siting in issues like that. He's the one who's substantially responsible for getting us the Cape Flyer and the location downtown here. I can tell people that there is no impetus to trying to locate a commuter rail station in the center of town. It's simply too small. You need a parking space of several hundred vehicles. Right now, I think what we're waiting for is to see whether the town of Bourne also supports commuter rail. The state is very hesitant to try to bring rail to places where it's not wanted. They went through a very difficult time in Hingham. Yes, exactly. It took 9 years to get that line built. There was a lot of local opposition. They demanded a mile-long tunnel initially. They wound up with a quarter-mile tunnel. So they're leery about venturing into the unknown. Wareham is a known for them. This town has been chasing commuter rail for a good 7 or 8 years now. They like us. They're happy to try to bring it here. What we're waiting for is Bourne to see whether they get on board. The terminus likely, in the state's view at this point, would be Buzzards Bay. There would be a stop in Wareham. The current thinking is that it would likely be located in West Wareham due to the fact that there's a lot of space out there. You could put in a parking lot fairly easily along Cranberry Highway and back up to the tracks. The other piece to it is that the chairman of the House Committee on Transportation is from Mattapoisett. He would like a Wareham station to serve his community, Marion, Carver, and Middleborough. So that's where we are. We're very hopeful that this will continue forward under a new governor.
Cool. Hey, you did it in 2 minutes. That's good.
I got the 10-second warning. Can you make it 25 next time? Thanks.
The status of the commuter rail service in Wareham, as Peter has explained, is being pursued hotly and heavily by the town. I think I've said it once before, but I probably am the only person in the room who actually rode the commuter rail from Wareham to Boston when it was called the Dude. I was a young lady, and my dad would commute from Wareham to Boston, and it was a great ride. So is it an important thing to get done? Yes. The first step is having the Cape Flyer having a stop right behind the fire station, which we hope will be finished by June 1st or earlier. It is clear that transportation needs to be refined, and that we need to, as a country, stop relying on getting in our own car and going on our own merry way. Railroads are integral to many European nations, and I think they probably really should be again here in the United States. So I'm all for it. Again, Mr. Teitelbaum and Mr. Slavin worked very, very hard behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, for what we have so far, and the Cape Flyer, and I believe that they know we're here.
Cool. Thank you.
A quick rebuttal.
Is there something to rebut? Well,
No,
information
rebuttal. I'm sorry, I rephrased that. I wanted to add something to that. One of the things I am a supporter of as far as commuter rail is the state, they see fit to have private agencies run the parking lots and whatnot. If commuter rail was to be in Wareham, you know, I'd like to see something start where we run our own parking and we benefit, you know, revenue-wise for parking, you know, because that's not been done before. But I think each town that has a lot, you know, there's additional law enforcement that has to be present to watch over things and public safety issues and whatnot. So, you know, I believe the revenue for those should go to the towns that actually have the parking lots and whatnot. But something to, you know, nag your state legislators about.
All right. That's a good idea. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, just to that point, that isn't a bad idea. I think the issue with that would be that the town would have to acquire the land. Most of the land in West Wareham that would be big enough to facilitate a parking lot holding 300, 400, 500 vehicles, whatever, is privately owned. The only land that we do own out there that's large enough to hold it is conservation land, and unfortunately, we can't tear up our perpetual conservation restrictions and put a parking lot in. I think there might be a problem with that,
We
so.
have eminent domain.
Ooh, Westfield. Okay, so, Judy, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you for that. I know that's been on a lot of our minds for, about the train. Because we've been being billed by them for a long time. for not
Well,
having
one thing I
train
will
come
say,
here.
if I could, is the assessment will go up if they bring it here. Understand
It's
that.
gonna
We're-
go up?
Well, yes, because
We're
that's
already
just a
paying for
constant.
not having trains.
Well, you're paying for one in the vicinity, in other words, close enough to drive to in Lakeville. So you're paying, what, about 20 grand for that? If
used to be a
it
lot
comes
more
here,
than
they'll
that.
charge us. Of that, there's no doubt. I think, other than Boston, the highest assessment in the state is the city of Quincy, because they've got, I think, 4 red line stops, and they get, plus bus service, so they get whacked a municipal assessment of something like 1.5 million a year. But when you've got 10,000 of your citizens hopping on the train every single day and going to Boston, it's well
Yeah.
worth it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, let's move over. Caitlin, you're up.
All right, should the town bring back trash barrels?
I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, yeah, Peter.
Should or can is really the question. We made the decision to support, last year, our town administrator's decision to remove the trash barrels, public trash barrels from all areas of town. This included the beaches, including Onset. It included downtown, where we had some trash barrels here and there along Main Street. It even included the trash barrel outside of Town Hall, so that we, going into Town Hall, could no longer dump our coffee cups in the trash barrel. We had to find a friendly person in the office who'd let us use their trash. The decision wasn't undertaken lightly, I can tell you that. The savings, particularly due to the need in the summer to pay for overtime, to run around to the beaches and picking the stuff up, was over $30,000. We implemented the policy, I think it was last May. We immediately heard people very unhappy about it. I think there were 6 weeks in a row when we had people coming before the Board of Selectmen during citizens' participation, complaining about it. A lot of the complaints were from Onset, naturally. That's the high traffic area in the summer, so that's where you'd expect to hear people complaining about it. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the money, and I don't think we have the money going forward. We're trying to emulate the state here, Steve, and come up with plans for people to learn to pack stuff in and pack stuff out. You'll see that a lot of the state property is owned by Department of Conservation and Recreation, that's the policy. You show up with your trash, you bring your picnic basket along, make sure you put your trash in when you're done having your picnic and take it home. And unfortunately, I think that's the wave of the future. I don't see this coming back.
Okay. Judy?
Sure. The question is, should the town bring back the trash barrels? I don't think that they should. I think that that $30,000 savings is better spent elsewhere. I would point out to you that if you drive any road in the town right now, you can see everybody's trash. And it's not just beach trash, it's, it's whatever it is. It's the stuff that's been hidden by the snowbanks. The state and many towns have instituted take it in, take it out policies. I think that it's incredibly rude of people to throw trash out of their car, whether it's a cigarette or whether it's a bag from McDonald's or some other place. I know that on the beaches, particularly Onset Beach, there were many, I would call them health issues by people leaving dirty diapers. That's just beyond comprehension to me. And I don't think that the merchants in Onset, which is really where the problem is, should be penalized. It may be that the Board of Health could work out a deal with their haulers to, on Mondays, I'll pick up the trash, on Tuesdays, the other company would pick up the trash, something like that. But that's something that's been tossed out, pardon the pun. And I'm not sure that, it's great publicity for the haulers to do that. But really, in today's fiscal crunch, we need to learn how to take care of our own business, which is trash that you should not be throwing out of the car or leaving on the beach.
Okay, Mike?
The diapers are our own business, no pun intended. I would have to agree with both other candidates in that Yeah, there's a lot of things on our wish list that would be very nice. I don't think there's any argument here whatsoever amongst any of us that the town is in a lot of financial trouble. And that's due partially to predecessors and whatnot, and poor management. But at first, when they said bring back the trash barrels, I thought town rubbish collection. I said, boy, that would be nice, and I understand the question a little bit better now. Yeah, so I guess we all have to pitch in a little bit here and pick up after ourselves. I would, I don't know as if I'd want to emulate what the state does in the big picture as a whole, but I do agree with both candidates at this juncture. That money would be best spent elsewhere. And I agree, these streets are atrocious. I just drove up in the back of St. Pat's there, church, is that church? There. And I mean, it's awful. I know one of my neighbors who had moved to Rochester a while back here, and her family were helping my volunteer pick up that area, and there's everything from used needles back there to you name it, it's a mess. But as far as the beaches and whatnot, yeah, I think that money at the moment is, everything's on a chopping block, and at the moment, no, it's not a good idea to bring that back. Thank you.
Yes, Judy.
Could I just add that the Buzzards Bay Coalition will be having their annual Clean Up the Bay Day.
Oh, okay, good.
And that previously, the town of Wareham has had volunteers putting together a trash, clean the trash off the side of the
Right.
road day. And I think it would be great if we could coordinate our efforts with the Buzzards Bay Coalition. I know that the JROCT TC program at the high school would be willing to pitch in. I'm sure that there are other youth groups that, give them a bag and give them a pokey stick.
Yeah, I just found out about 2 weeks ago that the little mobs are gonna start up again. Especially getting ready for our summer celebration. They'll
Yep.
be
Right.
hitting some of the critical areas.
Yep.
And I got one quick question. Did it work? Okay, we pulled the barrels last summer. Initially, everybody freaked out, they went nuts, right? And the beaches and, everything, there was, trash left, but did it eventually work? Did we start policing ourselves and start policing our neighbors by the end of the summer?
Well, as I understand it, I was told confidentially, actually by a couple of the people who came initially to complain about the removal of the barrels, that by midsummer, it started to abate, the amount of trash that they were finding, and that it seemed to be more or less working. I still think their preference still would have been to have had the barrels back.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they conceded that, at first it was a matter. And one of the things that we, frankly screwed up was we didn't get the signs out telling people
Okay.
before we took
Right.
the barrels away.
Right.
And, hey, we goofed, what can I say?
And everybody called and reported stolen barrels, right?
Well, they wanted to know what the heck happened to the barrels, and then 2 weeks later the sign pops up. Oh, no barrels. I see. Once the signs went up, it seemed to abate, and then as people got used to the practice of going to the beach, bringing their stuff with them, saving a garbage bag or,
Right.
or whatever to carry their trash out, it did get a lot better. So
That's
we're
good.
hopeful that we don't have to go through a big re-education effort again this year.
'Cause I know, like, we do Summer of Love every Wednesday night. And
Right.
with the barrels there, it was a mess. Without the barrels, it seemed to get better over the summer.
Yeah.
And then we used to do the movies with the On Survey Movie Company, and we were constantly cleaning up around the barrels because they were just targets for people to throw stuff at.
Well, one of the things with
So-
barrels you got to understand is if you put a barrel out, they will fill it, and it doesn't
yeah.
matter if
And
it's
overfill it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's because we don't have municipal trash pickup. We haven't since the late '70s or early '80s. People don't want to drive all the way up to the transfer station to dump it. So if you put out a trash barrel, they're happy to put their household trash in it, and that's why they fill up so quickly. So that's another thing, that getting rid of the barrels was a benefit, because now you can't just pull up to something with your garbage bag and put it out, because people are going to say, what the heck are you doing with that?
Yeah, on my lawn. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can see
well-
when there's a problem. Okay.
Technical note for you, Steve.
Yeah, keep on moving and stop talking.
Mike
Oh.
Frank's
Oh.
mic seems to be muted.
Oh, okay. We'll do that. And while we're doing that, we'll have another question from Bill. It's your turn, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What is your history in Wareham town government?
I'm starting.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I served more than 10 years, 30 some odd years ago. My name was Judith Whiteside. I began my education in Wareham government by serving on the Finance Committee, on the Recreation Committee. I ended up on the Sewer Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners. I was a member of the Carver, Marion, Wareham Regional Refuse District. I was one of the people who signed the original document to allow CMAS to build its plant. And ultimately, I was elected to selectman, where I served, I think, a total of 4 years. There was a recall that I was put back into office on. We don't need to go into that. So I have a lot of ancient history, if you will. And I would point out that during that time, we did not have computers, we did not have PCs, we had the good old typewriters with a cha-ching, move the carriage kind of thing. When we were on the Finance Committee, we interviewed every department, and we would meet until, 11 o'clock at night or something like that. It was horrendous. My daughter attended her first town meeting when she was 7 days old, and I continued in that term in selectmen until I finished the term. So I have a whole lot of, I'll call it ancient experience. And then I've been a current selectman for not quite a year. And I guess, does that answer your question? Or do I need more time?
That's fine.
That's it. Okay, and Michael, you're next.
So this question is specific to Wareham town government and not any other town. But so as far as Wareham goes, my history is 0. As far as other towns, I back in 87, 89, I was I went after office as a selectman in Weymouth, and that was a close race. I did lose that. I did serve on a few different committees in Weymouth over the years. And that's about the extent of my town government history. As far as my experience in government outside of, as far as my experience with government goes, it's it's focused on Weymouth, and I don't have any experience of what's going on in Wareham. Sometimes I think there's an asset.
Okay. Who's next? Peter.
I guess I'd have to say my first experience with Wareham town government was probably my first town meeting, which was sometime in the late 70s. We have to consider town meeting as an important part of the town government. It is the legislative branch of the town. It's the body that decides how much money gets spent and on what the money gets spent is part of its important function. It also makes decisions about what interests in property the town takes or relinquishes, as the case may be. So that I consider that involvement in town government. If you show up to town meeting and even if you just sit there and don't vote, you're still involved in the town government. In terms of committee work, which I would distinguish, I served on the Minot Forest Committee, I think starting in 2010 until I vacated that when I was elected selectman in 2012, and I've been on the Board of Selectmen since then.
Okay. Okay, Caitlin.
Should the town plow private roads?
Ooh, and Mike, you're up on that one.
The town should plow any road in which there are residents, in which there are public safety issues, in which they need to, what do we do? Put snow plows on ambulances and snow plows on public safety vehicles? Of course they should. That's a ridiculous question, but I will answer it. There are residents that live in these towns. They need services, emergency services, and if there's a storm and we don't do that, there's also severe liability issues. And I'm sure the chairman of the selectmen here would agree with that, but that's all I have to say on that issue.
Okay. Peter.
Yeah, well, this, of course, has been a long-time issue in the town. Prior administrators, prior boards of selectmen, just to go back here, in order to plow private ways open to public use, which is how the statute reads, you have to vote to adopt the statute. And that's a ballot question on the town election ballot this year. So April 1st, even if you don't care about voting for any of the selectmen or other offices, if you have an opinion on whether the town should authorize the plowing of private ways, you need to show up and vote. So that's an important question, aside from the political races. For some people, it's probably a lot more important question, frankly. The history of this is that we never adopted that section of the statute, which is General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 6C, which authorizes you to do it. There's been kind of an open secret in town that nobody really wanted to talk about, and everybody just kind of ignored. Past town administrators, past boards of selectmen. It was a third rail kind of question. Who the hell wanted to grab it? Who wanted to be the person who said, hey, we're not supposed to be doing this when we'd been doing it all along? I'll give credit to Mr. Sullivan for frankly forcing the issue to the fore and making it so that we had to go and find the political solution to the problem itself. We did have a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, a workshop meeting back, I think it was in August. We asked council at that point in time, our records, date back to 1739. We don't know where some of them are. What are our liabilities if we don't plow? What is a public way on the misunderstanding that it's a private way? We were told that we were in big trouble. So the solution was to get this before the townspeople, to plow this winter because we couldn't cease the activity. But you have an opportunity to do something about that as a voter on April 1st.
Okay, Judy.
Should the town plow private roads? Yes, I believe it should, because it is a public safety issue. On the other hand, we do not get reimbursed by the state for plowing those roads. And we do get reimbursed Chapter 90 funds for roads that have been accepted. So there is a cost attached to it. And the key word really is a private road open to public use, because there are some private roads that are not open to public use. One of the problems that we had back in August, I guess it was, when we were trying to figure out what to do with this question was, well, let's have a list of the town roads. And there are 3 different versions at least. And that was not going to be something that we could have anybody, correct, amend, and proceed from there. So the correct decision by Mr. Sullivan was to order that it be done. It was an executive decision made by him, backed up by the board. Now it has been brought to the public by Pat Romney actually went around and collected signatures to get it on the ballot. And I think it's incumbent on all townspeople to vote on that issue. If it does not pass, we will not be plowing the private open to public roads. If it does pass, we will continue to do what we apparently have been doing in the past.
Okay. You have something else to add, Mike?
Yeah, one more addition to that is that I agree with Ms. Whiteside. It's an important issue to vote on, and to not support that opens up the town for a lot of liability if something serious were to happen, number one. And it's a good business decision, is an executive decision. Number two, I'll comment on that, that's all.
Okay, Peter, anything else?
Yeah, public safety was the paramount concern here. You can't put firefighters at risk, you can't put cops at risk, you can't put EMS at risk by expecting them to go down and try to rescue people in storms or out of fires when there's a foot of snow, impeding their progress, lengthening the response time, and increasing the risks and the conditions that they have to battle to do their jobs. So that was a big part of it, in addition to the fact that we simply couldn't look at every single street in town and say definitively, yes, public way, no, private way. And I'll be honest with you, we may go through that exercise. If this ballot question fails, we're probably going to have to at least try to go through that exercise to show the taxpayers that we are operating in good faith here. Try to ascertain what exactly is public and private. I don't see us being able to do that with our current workforce. We're going to have to get a fleet of interns in here to pour through books, look at ancient ways, maps dating back to the 1700s, the whole 9 yards. So it'll be interesting if they don't vote for it. So I think you know where I want you to go with it, folks.
All of us agreed, I think.
Anything else to add, Judy?
No, I think it's incumbent upon us to get the record straightened out. You should know whether your road is accepted road, whether it's a public road but not accepted. You should know. So whether it gets done next year by a fleet of interns or even better, a fleet of volunteers, it's going to have to be done. It's the appropriate thing to do.
All right, quick follow-up. if in the event that it doesn't pass through the vote on the ballot, will the decision that you guys made last year be able to be made again, or is that a one-time deal? It's a one-shot deal?
It's the executive decision.
From my perspective.
Just to let people know that they gotta, you know,
Well, it's going to depend
off
on
the
what we
pot and
find.
do it.
It's going to depend on whether we can logically reconstruct the ancient records. Look, I spoke with somebody at the, August workshop we had. She lives out in West Wareham. She lives on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere. However, she can point to the fact that there was a colonial church out there in the 1700s. And up until we adopted a state constitution, certainly in the 1600s, there was a state religion. And you can be damn sure that part of the state religion was making sure that the citizens of the state could get to their state church.
Right.
So does she have an argument that, hey, back in 1600, this was a public way because they took care of it? Those are the kinds of things that you're going to get into over and over and over again. So could we, would we logically have to try to separate the wheat from the chaff and figure it out? Yeah. Could we? God only knows. So
okay.
I wouldn't want to undertake the task. I hope that the people vote yes on question 1, I guess is
Okay, we'll just
where I'm
leave it
heading
at
with
that.
this.
I'd like to add one thing to that, Steve. If
You got
not,
12 seconds.
12 seconds. If not, the town had better have something planned on what they do to respond to a accident situation if somebody was in peril, because, we're opening up huge can of worms as far as liability. So at minimal, we should have some alternative plan if it fails. Thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, Bill, you're next, right?
Do you support the Proposition 2.5 override that is expected to come at town meeting?
Okay.
Who gets
and
that?
PDF first.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, we're still waiting for the actual plan that's being drawn up by the school superintendent.
Excuse me.
And the town administrator. I think there's going to be possibly some give and take with that. There's going to be some discussion. Remember, the Board of Selectmen has a responsibility under the Town of Wareham Charter to sort of oversee the budget process. The town administrator spends the money when he gets it for his different departments, but the selectmen are the ones who are supposed to set the priorities for the town spending. What we're waiting for right now, and we hope to have by Thursday, when we have a joint meeting scheduled with the school committee and the finance committee to go over what they propose, is a plan that will be sort of a contingent budget. In other words, we know what the base budget is already. That's the one that's up on the town website. Fiscal year 2015 draft budget, I think, is the actual link name. So you can go look at that. You can see that there are significant cuts. And we know there are cuts to the library, we know there are cuts to the Council on Aging, the police department, schools, all over the place. What the goal, I believe, people should look at with an override article. Remember, we have an article as a placeholder on the town meeting warrant. What we're waiting for is what we would call the motion, which is going to be what we actually decide to do at town meeting. The motion will consist of an additional budget with the additional revenue that's being sought added in with a final number saying this is what it's going to cost you. Do I support it? I will support a revenue plan that makes sense. I will support allocations of money that make sense. I don't have anything to support right now. Do I think I will likely eventually support it? Unfortunately, and I say that because of the fact that I know it's taking money out of people's pockets, including my own. I think we're at the point where we have to seriously consider it.
Okay, thank you. Judy?
Yes, it's, what Mr. Titlebaum has said is accurate. We do not yet have a figure for the override. I'd like to correct a couple of misconceptions, if I might.
You might. You may.
The Council on Aging has not been not funded. It is being funded by $100,000 of revolving and receipts received accounts. The daycare program will continue, and other programs will continue on a fee user basis. The library was cut back, but it was not closed. And I think those are two very important things for people to remember. This is using the proposed balanced budget. The Finance Committee has been working really hard, not only by itself, but also the school superintendent and Mr. Sullivan and Mr. McMillan, the business manager at the school, have been working really hard to figure out what we can get along with for the budget, and then what it would be nice to have put back in for the override question. It appears that the figure for the override may be between $3 and $6 million, but we don't know that yet. We're meeting on Thursday, absent 9 feet of snow, to get closer to understanding what that figure might be. The question really is, do I support the override? I don't know at this minute if I do or not. The override, if it makes sense, if the presentation continues services that I feel very strongly should be continued, yes, I would be supporting it. But until those figures are in front of me and I see what the impact of not putting the override in place is, I can't really honestly answer that question.
Sorry about the noise.
I know,
He seems to derive
aggravating.
a lot of pleasure out of that, doesn't he?
The light would be great, and leave it at that.
He's got his hand doing this.
We're gonna shut the noise off.
Oh, I'm kidding.
You can shut the noise off, Paul, if you want. We'll leave it on.
No, the noise is great.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, you're next. Same question.
Same question, Proposition 2.5 override. I can remember, I think I was in high school or something when Proposition 2.5 was passed. First of all, no, I won't support a 2.5 override, and I don't even care what the issues are, and I'll tell you why. You know, you can add all you want on, but you know, people are not working, and a lot of people are hurting right now. Government's solution to some of our economic problems is to extend unemployment. We have a loss of a whole class of jobs out there, and I'm talking blue-collar jobs. We have a class of companies out there that are seeking employees with no benefits. I mean, this is systemic. It's a cancer that is eating away at us. You know, I want to also comment on one thing that was a question the other night at the Candidates' Night in Onset, and I want to comment on this because, first of all, we couldn't hear the questions from the audience at all because there was no mics out there, and I'm sorry to say that. But one of the questions that was somebody was opinionated on, as far as my answer was, the question was, do I think that businesses should throw in a little more? And my answer to that was yes, they should voluntarily do so. That's my feeling, that they should. Are they going to? Most likely not. Any more than the voters of this town have ever passed an override in the past. It's never happened. Do we do it over and over again? No. You know, sometimes we have to adjust to our population. That includes services, you know. There's other ways, but I'm out of time, I guess. No, I'm not. There's other ways to manage the issue, and you know, I walk into things. I don't make any decision based on not being informed. Now I'm out of time. All right, I don't want that awful buzzer, so I'll stop.
Okay, Peter, do you have anything to add? I think you were
Yeah,
next on
I
the
mean,
road.
you know, I've been at this for 2 years now, and I think I'm not a numbers guy by nature. I'm an attorney, I'm not a numbers cruncher. But I can tell you that we're not fooling when we talk about the services we're going to cut. These aren't scare tactics. We've done all the raids we can do to come up with, you know, the little reserves of money that tend to get tucked around a municipality. You know, we hit up the healthcare trust fund, I think, in 2010. Now, how did that work out for us? No free cash last year because we had to replenish it. We were advised by the Department of Revenue not to do that. We did it anyway. We don't have any reserves. We don't have money kicking around. We do have occasional one-time income coming in, but you don't fund operations off of one-time income. You don't accept grants to put on, say, people in EMS or first responder sorts of things when the grant runs out in 3 years, because then how do you pay the salary? You know, unfortunately, the cuts you see are the result of the fiscal discipline that's sort of been imposed on us by conditions. We're not going to be able to grow our way out of this mess quickly enough. We're doing what we can to attract new business. We offer tax increment financing agreements. We get a hotel. We hope that will lead to jobs, higher property values. But that's all the kind of stuff we should have been doing for the last 20 or 30 years to have any impact today. We can't grow our way out of this mess. It's not going to happen. So the question comes, and it's going to be up to the voters, what sort of a town do you want? If you want a town with a rump library, if you want a town with fewer cops, then pay what you pay now and stick with the balanced budget. If you want more, then you're going to be asked to pony up more. And that's really the question to be answered in people's minds.
Okay, Judy, did you have something else there?
Yes, actually, I was on the Finance Committee when Proposition 2.5 was passed.
Excuse me.
And I remember standing in front of the town meeting, which at that point was in the town hall, in the, auditorium, and those horrible wooden seats. But I remember standing there and holding a dollar bill up and saying that Proposition 2.5 is very strict about what you can and cannot do, okay? And I held the dollar like this and I said, a dollar bill or $1,000 bill, whatever, your budget represented by this dollar cannot and will not stand up to pressure from both ends, the income and the outgo, and the thing ripped down the middle, or not really, but that was the intent. Was the intent of 2.5 a good one? Absolutely, because there was profligate spending in all cities and towns, and that was just, a way of reining it in. Was it a good law when it was passed? Don't know. Is it a good law today? Don't know. There are people who believe that it could be tinkered with so that there would be ways to increase your levy without having the appropriate, the additional income that we would hope that we would be able to get. They're all tied in together, however. Property values are tied into how the town is perceived, who lives in the town, who is educated in the town, and what opportunities are there in the town. So that we're all very aware as selectmen, and all of the people who volunteer for the town at the moment are all very aware of how difficult a question this is.
Okay, one more quick one.
One more quick one. Excise tax was a wartime tax. That never went away, okay? It was, the money was supposed to go into roads and whatnot. Proposition 2.5 was a law to control uncontrolled spending. And it's that simple. And again, if the economy was vibrant, if people were working, that's not at anyone's fault in this town government. It goes much higher than that. Then revenue would be better, But it's not, and we're all hurting. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else, anything else to add?
Just to the point that if 2.5 or 4.5, it wouldn't be so bad. The issue we have, really, the issue we have as a municipality is, and this is directly attributable, Jeff Sweat on the school committee came up with some numbers, I think starting 3 years ago. What we see is approximately an average of our healthcare costs going up 7.5% a year. You cannot fund that when your levy increase can only go up 2.5%. It's really that simple. So that's where the money is going. People say, well, geez, you must be hiring more people, or you must have too many people working for you. That's not the case. The case is the expenses are triple the revenue.
Right.
The biggest expense, by the way. So.
Okay, all right.
And can we just add, those are negotiated, those are there are only 2 people in the town of Wareham who are not under union contract. So that any give up or give away, it has to be a negotiated deal. And in order for people to say, well, just get rid of them, if you lose a person because they retire, they get retirement benefits. If you lose a person because you fire him or her, you have unemployment benefits, among other things. So it's a very fine balance, and those, we really have to count them as fixed costs. They are part of the contracts of virtually every employee of the town of Wareham, including the schools.
Okay, can we jump ahead? What's your next question, Katie?
Excuse me.
Well, your
About
next
the
one is
proposed cuts.
the budget one?
Yeah.
Can we jump ahead to the next one beyond that one? Just want to lighten it up a little bit. I feel like we're getting too deep here. I'm getting depressed. I'm gonna move. No, I'm just kidding. I'll never
Yeah, you
move
can
this.
read it,
I
just so
love
we
this
don't.
town.
Do you wanna do that?
No, we're gonna go up to,
My next one.
yeah, Bill, why don't we just jump to your next one, because that's a little bit,
All right, a little more rosy.
yeah, a little more, some positive, some, some hope. All right, go ahead, go
So
for it.
what would you do as selectman to make Wareham more of a tourist destination?
Okay, and I'm trying to remember who gets this one.
I think it's Judy.
Judy? Okay, Judy, you can have this one. I want you to smile when you say it.
I
There
think
you
that
go.
Wareham is a tourist destination. My personal creed is that I do not go over the bridges to the Cape after May 1st or prior to October 1st. It used to be a little bit not quite that bad. Wareham has everything that you could possibly want. It has restaurants, it has beaches, it has amusement parks, it has wonderful weather, and you don't have to sit in a traffic jam. We have on 195 the tourist beach and tourism trailer, which is handing out information. We're working closely with the Chambers of Commerce. We work closely with magazines. Recently, I can't remember the name of the magazine, that boat thing. They did a spread. I can't remember what the name of the magazine. Nice, I would call it coffee table magazine about power boats. And there was a 6-page spread on Onset as a water destination. Some of the best fishing is in Wareham. So I think we already are a tourist destination. How do we sell it better? That's what the Beach and Tourism Committee is working on, and I think that you have seen just in the past couple of months, there's going to be an Oyster Fest. This year's the Summer of Celebration, and that's just going to bring, I think, a large number of people. And people will catch on that this is, don't go over the bridge. You don't need to.
I agree. Mike?
I'll never plagiarize and I'll never take credit. But that brainstorming just, made me think. I sail. I'm an avid sailor, and I really enjoy it. As we know, we have quite a bit of parking issues in Wareham. So the amusement park, I assume you're talking about the slide thing there or something. Is that what you're the water slide? Yeah. When I think of an amusement park, I think of Lincoln Park when I was a kid, and that was a lot of fun. But we have a big issue with just parking. So how would I make it a destination? You'd have to have a place to support, to make it a, I gotta look at this question again. How would you make Wareham a tourist destination? I think we get some great beaches. I think, I don't, Miss Whiteside said at onset the other day, we were talking about the Tremont Nail thing and this and that. I mean, I think it's a far cry from the Salem Witch Museum and whatnot. I think that we would have to welcome the water traffic and whatnot. Maybe a regatta. I mean, there's all sorts of brainstorming that can be done there. We have plenty of room in the channel. Maybe sponsor some sort of event that would bring in revenue or whatnot. There's a lot of thought there that my mind just started going on. I'm not going to try to steal. It definitely made me think a little bit. There's a big space issue, like I say. I mean, you could make any sort of a magnet for tourists, but then you have to have a place to put them. So it's not like we have the convention center in Boston. So it's a good question.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, well, this is an issue near and dear to my heart. It's something I ran on the first time around, was getting a beach and tourism committee established in the town, which I was able to get the Board of Selectmen to support. I serve on that as a member. We've got Bruce Hutchins, who is the gentleman who manages the Route 195 Information Center that Selectman Whiteside was just speaking about. We've got Linda Burke, who's the Vice President of Marketing for 80 Makepeace, and she comes up with the best damn graphic materials you'd ever want to see. And we have Mary Bruce, who's very active in town affairs as well. We do have one more opening on there. I'll pitch the opening while I've got a forum here. But what I will say is that we have been working hard to try to come up with a marketing plan for the town. We've met several times with Paul Cripps, who's the director of the Plymouth County Tourism Board. He, in turn, has helped us secure state funding for the 195 rest area out of the Mass Office of Tourism and Travel. We're currently, on March 31st, I want people to pay attention to this, from 9 until noontime, we are hosting a business invitee sort of informational get-together, because we want to be able to plan to take people around on the Cape Flyer when they get off in Wareham, what to do with them. We're going to have GATRA, the Regional Transit Authority, that their buses take people around town. We've already met with them. They're promising to give us some bus routes, to get people out to Swiss Beach possibly, to get people to Waterwiz, to get people to Onset Beach. We already have the gentleman who opened up the kayak service down on Onset Beach last summer. He's part of this now. So we're really starting to develop some momentum here. Again, this was something I thought was important when I ran. It's a way of marketing the town. It's a way of getting revenue. It's a way of getting people interested in the town, coming down. Tourism, to me, doesn't end with somebody getting off the train and going on the kayak and then going back up to Newton. I want them to look at Wareham and say, you know what? I like this better than Newton. I'm moving here. And so there's a lot to be said to try to get the tourists here.
Right. Judy?
I'll add on. It's pretty obvious to me that we have a wonderful attraction that is here really only in the summertime, and that is the Wareham Gatemen, which are one of the 10 teams of the Cape Cod Baseball League. They are centered here in Wareham, and they've been here, I don't know, 80-something, 5 years. That's really good entertainment. They are college boys, men, who play wooden bat ball. We have the Scouts come for about a week in late July, mid-July, and they actually, you know, we've had several of our players, not just from Wareham, but from the Cape League, make the major leagues. So if you want to see them before they're really famous, come to Spillane Field. We ask you for a donation, and we sell you wonderful popcorn and hot dogs and chili dogs and gross stuff like that. But it's a really good thing to have as part of what's available for free.
Nothing more affordable than that.
No, it's a great deal. We go, my family goes all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else to add? Because we're going to take a break.
That sounds like a wonderful idea.
Okay, all right, stay tuned. We'll be back in about, what is it, 13 minutes, Warren? 13 minutes or so. Don't bank on it, but it's close. So we're going to take a break. We're going to roll in our I Have a Dream special that was produced here at Wareham Community Television.
All right.
And hopefully he's going to kill my mic really quickly.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
5 years ago, a great American,
in whose symbolic shadow we stand today,
signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light and hope
to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice.
It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity.
But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free.
100 years later,
the life of the Negro is sadly crippled by the manacles of
segregation and the chains of discrimination.
100 years later,
the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty,
in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity.
100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society.
And finds himself in exile in his own land.
And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition.
In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check.
When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence,
They were signing a promissory note for which all Americans were to fall heir.
This note was a promise that all men,
yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights
of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note.
Insofar as her citizens of color are concerned,
instead of honoring this sacred obligation,
America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds.
But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt.
We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds
in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation.
And so we've come to cash this check.
This check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom
and the security of justice.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now.
This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off,
or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation
to the sunlit path of racial justice.
Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice.
Do that sound like a brotherhood.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment.
The sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent
will not pass until there's an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality.
1963 is not an end, but a beginning.
And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam
and will now be content will have a rude awakening.
If the nation returns to business as usual.
There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights.
The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation.
Until the bright day of justice emerges.
But there's something I must say to my people,
who stand on the warm threshold
which leads into the palace of justice,
in the process of gaining our rightful place.
We must not be guilty of wrongful deeds.
Let's not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred.
We must forever conduct our struggle
on the high plane of dignity and discipline.
We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence.
Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights
of meeting physical force with soul force.
The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people.
For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today,
have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
And they have come to realize that their freedom
is inextricably bound by our freedom.
We cannot walk alone.
And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we will always march ahead.
We cannot turn back.
There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights,
when will you be satisfied?
We can never be satisfied.
As long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
We can never be satisfied.
As long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel,
cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways or the hotels of the cities.
We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility
is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one.
We can never be satisfied.
As long as our children are stripped of their
selfhood and robbed of their dignity with signs saying, "For whites only."
We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi
cannot vote
and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote.
No, no, we are not satisfied.
And we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters.
And righteousness like a mighty stream.
I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of trials and tribulations.
Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells.
And some of you have come from areas where your quest
for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality.
You have been the veterans of creative suffering.
Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive.
Go back to Mississippi.
Go back to Alabama.
Go back to South Carolina.
Go back to Georgia.
Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our
northern cities, knowing that something can and will be changed.
Let us not wallow in a valley of despair.
I say to you today, my friends,
even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners
will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi,
a state sweltering with the heat of
injustice sweltering with the heat of oppression,
will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation
where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I have a dream today
I have a dream that one day, down in
Alabama, with its vicious racists,
with its governor having his lips dripping with the words interposition and nullification.
One day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls
will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as brothers and sisters.
I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted.
And every hill and mountain shall be made low, and the rough places will be made plain.
And the crooked places will be made straight.
And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed.
And all flesh shall see it together.
This is our hope.
And this is the faith that I go back to the South with.
With this faith,
we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
And with this faith, we'll be able to transform the jangling discord of this nation
into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
With this faith, we will be able to work together.
To pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together.
To stand up for freedom together.
Knowing that we will be free one day, and this will be the day.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing.
Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado.
Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
But not only that.
Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet,
from every state
and every city.
We will be able to speed up that day when all God's children,
Black men and white men, Protestants and Catholics, Jews and Gentiles,
will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
To our third annual candidates debate. So we're going to continue questioning, and the next one on the list is Caitlin. Caitlin has a question, and this goes to Mike first.
how would you work towards keeping people in Wareham?
Keeping people in Wareham. Well, you know, I can tell you how we've lost a few. I've been approached by several voters, and they're concerned about the education, and that has to do with school choice. And do I believe in school choice? I do if there's a program Wareham can't provide. I believe in a good many of the educators in this town. I've met several of them. But how would I keep people in Wareham? I'll tell you how I'd keep people in Wareham is I'd hold departments accountable on their budgets. I would review every line item of every budget, which is what Mr. Tattlebaum mentioned earlier. It's a job of selectmen to vote. It's not the job of selectmen to administer the town. That's the town administrator, but we vote on issues. How I would keep people in the town is by controlling spending. I know we've said we're at a minimal. I mean, I haven't gone through every budget and every line item as of yet, you know, but that's something I would do. I would also use social media, which is a wonderful tool today. And I would, you know, personally as a selectman, I would go over my view on different topics, and I would maintain an open forum, both in my home. Anybody's welcome to come by my home for coffee in the morning. Bill, or next to you, will tell you I'd make a good cup of coffee, and people are welcome to come by, and I will listen. I'm retired, so I have a lot of time, or they can follow me down to the Y. I'm a big supporter of the Y and keeping Wareham healthy. If you want to meet me from 6:30 to about 9 every day, I'm there. You can't run on a treadmill anymore, but I go a good pace, and I'll listen. I will listen to anything anybody has to say, because as a selectman, it's not my sole opinion. It's the opinion of the people who vote for me, and therefore, you know, my votes. And that's basically the selectman's duty, is to oversee budget. And my time is up. Gosh darn it. I'll try to get back to you on that.
Okay, Peter.
Keeping people in Wareham, I guess a question like that is predicated upon the notion that people are leaving in droves. If you mean keeping kids in Wareham schools, that might be a separate question. Keeping people in Wareham, our population does grow, albeit more slowly now than it did in the 90s, which was probably our biggest boom, and the early part of this decade before the 2008 economic collapse. I think you keep people in Wareham by getting people engaged in Wareham. And one of the problems we have, I think, as compared to when I was a kid, and, you know, it seemed like every man jack would show up at town meeting. There's a disinterest in government. People are busy. People don't seem to take the same interest in public affairs. They seem to be content to either try to let the selectmen muddle through stuff, which is never good. We need to hear from people, as Michael suggested, on what they would like. We can't just guess at it. We have citizens' participation at the selectmen's meetings every single week. People are free to come and voice their concerns. It's pretty freewheeling, you know, it's not a formal debate society. But I think really it comes down to quality of life issues. We have to try to figure out ways to deliver more efficient police services. We have to figure out a way to deal with the rampant drug problem that's not only here but everywhere. I read a statistic recently that since November there had been 54 heroin overdoses resulting in death in Plymouth and Bristol counties combined. We've had a few in this town. We need to get a handle on that. We need to look at some of the less advantaged areas in town. We have to look at the trailer parks and see what we can do to get them classified as affordable housing and try to bring up the standards in which they live. I think if we all get interested in the town, then it'll work a lot better.
Okay, you all set? Judy?
Question is, how do you work toward keeping people in Wareham? I think I've been doing that basically all my life. But clearly the tenor on the Board of Selectmen has changed in the past year. And that should be an indication of people's willingness to stand up for what they believe and people who are willing to work for the betterment of Wareham. Perception is reality. And the perception is that Wareham is a dive and that there's a really big drug problem and the schools suck. Well, actually the high school is a level 1 school. And the drug problem is all over the United States and probably the rest of the world. And if you look at our natural resources, we have 54 miles of coastline, not all of it saltwater, some of it freshwater. We have public beaches. We have miles and miles of conservation land where you can walk for free, including probably the oldest one is the Minot Forest, but we have many, many new areas. It's a really attractive place to be. And if people, you got to look at it as an optimist. You can say that, well, the real estate values are really depressed. Yeah, it's a great time to make an investment. You know, that's where you go in and you help be part of the change of a town. So my weekly meetings, I try and say something. I do say something about the schools and the accomplishments of the school children. We certainly have worked well with the school and the finance committee. That is how I have worked toward keeping people in Wareham, is show them that I believe in it and I'm staying.
Well, good timing. Okay, anything serious to add, or are we going to keep on moving?
It's great if somebody can invest in real estate. I mean, I did it for many, many years, but I mean, I think people's hands are tied. Again, you know, it's how to keep people in is the question. I mean, you know, I agree. Our schools are. I mean, there's no question it's level 1 schools, but people are going elsewhere, and people aren't involved in government, and that's one of the reasons I'm running. I believe no race should go uncontested. Nobody should take for granted, and I'm not saying either of these contestants are. Don't get me wrong, but you know, it's people are losing interest in government, and they should be interested, and that's one of the reasons I'm running. Thank you.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, just further to the issue of keeping kids in school. You know, this isn't something that's really 100% new. Perhaps the Chapter 70 funding formulas are relatively new, but the whole idea of some parents taking kids out of school dates back. My mother made the decision when I was in the 8th grade in the Wareham Public Schools to send me to Tabor Academy. When I went to Tabor Academy, I didn't just find other kids from Wareham. I found kids from Cohasset. I found kids from Weston. I found kids from affluent suburbs outside of New York, which by any rational definition had outstanding public schools. So the idea that, you know, you're leaving Wareham because the schools are horrible is not necessarily true, because otherwise why is somebody from Weston, Cohasset, you know, I guess, you know, Bedford Hills, New York, or wherever you want to pick, why are they sending their kids off to an elite prep school? Because it's probably a better school. It doesn't mean that your school is awful. So I just want to make that point. It's been an age-old problem. So long as, you know, people perceive that there's a better alternative for their kids out there, they're going to send their kids to that school. And I think one of the things that the new superintendent is trying to do is to draw attention to the fact that the high school is a level 1 school. She's trying to raise the standards of the 2 elementary schools and the middle school up, so that they too can move from Category 2 and Category 3 schools up to the level 1. So she has expectations, which is something that I think has been lacking in the school department. She wants conduct and kids to behave. She wants the teachers to hold kids accountable. So there's a lot happening in the schools to help keep families in Wareham.
Yeah, thank you. Judy?
I know that some people feel they're trapped in Wareham because they bought their houses at the height of the market. And they feel responsible for the mortgage, and they are, in fact, then sending their kids to the local systems. Parents make choices to take kids to different schools. Really, most kids don't make those decisions, unless you're probably a junior or senior in the high school. Some of what Wareham does not offer are offered by the Voc schools, and we do, in fact, transport kids to those. The reimbursement goes both ways, however. We have students come to the high school from Bourne, from Carver, from other places. We also have had, in the past 4 years that I'm aware of, a German student who has come and been put in the honors classes in the high school. They've all been girls so far. And those girls have a couple of years of English, that they've learned in school. And they're practicing their English in Wareham High School. Wareham is a town full of people who give. Think of the football team that was able to raise an enormous amount of money so that a bunch of kids could go to Disney and play in a competition. Was that the right thing to do? Absolutely. So there are people in this town who really do care about it.
Okay, next question is to Bill.
What would you do as selectman to consolidate or, if possible, eliminate the 2 fire districts in town?
And Peter, you're on that.
This is the age-old third rail question for anybody who doesn't know the answer. Just people need to understand what the fire districts are.
Okay, tell us, Peter.
And how they came into being. The Wareham Fire District was the first, and it started out early 1900s, I believe, perhaps even a little bit earlier than that. It was a decision by citizens in Wareham to come up with a fire district. At that time, you didn't have fire districts necessarily as part of a municipality, especially in rural towns, because they weren't developed. You didn't have a lot of people that you could readily serve with what were horse-drawn teams at the time. So you would start out and you would create a district, and you would defend that district with your apparatus. They were separate from the town government. The monies were raised separately. Eventually, they became creatures of the legislature, where people would get band together and petition the legislature to allow them to create a fire district. Wareham was number 1. Onset was number 2. The reason Onset came into being was because the people in Onset, at one point, decided to petition the Wareham Fire District for fire service down there. Anybody who knows anything about how Onset was established will recall that it was basically built out after the Civil War substantially as a spiritualist community. And so as time went on, and the people in Onset, being spiritualists and not Methodists or Congregationalists or Episcopalians, like most of the citizens in Wareham, they were a little bit different. The people in Wareham didn't perceive them the same. So when the Onset folks came a-calling, the Wareham folks basically said, "You think we're giving fire service to you kooks?" And they gave them the thumbs down, and that's the reality of what happened. And so Onset created its own fire district. They have, and this was chartered by the legislature. To do away with the fire district, you would have to get a vote of the district itself to petition the legislature to do away with it, and then the legislature would have to vote in turn to do away with it. Never going to happen in Wareham. Really, really, really never going to happen in Onset. They're very proud of their fire district down there. It's a source of village pride for them. It's a very well-run organization. The people in Onset are very happy with it. They're happy with their water service. They're happy with their fire service. They like the guys on the fire department. And from their point of view, this is something that the town of Wareham, municipal government, can never take away from them or screw up on them. So they're very happy to have it. And it's a fact of life. And as a selectman, you look at it, you say, okay, and you move on, unless you want to get yourself in a lot of hot water for no good reason.
Steve, I gave him 2 minutes because he was giving a history lesson, not really.
Oh, yeah, well, I wanted to give him extra time. That's why I just kept it running, because, yeah, that was interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
I've been asking that question forever, and thank you.
Yeah, it goes back to well, everything goes back to religious differences sometimes. So that's there you go.
Certainly does.
Okay, who's next? Judy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do. In fact, there were 3 fire departments in Wareham at one time. There was the town of Wareham Fire Department. And during the 80s, I believe, it became apparent that it was silly to have
The
3.
out-of-district district. That's what we used to call it back then, was the out-of-district district. Because it wasn't in either the Wareham or the Onset one.
So that
Cameron, both of
department
them? That was good.
was basically rolled into the Wareham Fire and Water District. I think the question might be asking something a little bit different. As Mr. Teitelbaum has explained, they are separate legal entities, and we cannot, as selectmen or town fathers, ask them to do anything that they wouldn't ordinarily do. We can have conversations with both districts about consolidation of services, perhaps maybe dispatching, perhaps maybe sharing ladder, something like that. It is very clear to me that there's a huge amount of cooperation between the 2 fire districts anyway, as was shown a couple of days ago when the building on Tyler Avenue, and they're regularly shifting men from station to station to provide coverage if Onset is responding, Wareham will send an engine, that kind of thing. So I think that consolidation of services may be something that the districts would be wise to look into, could invite the town to look into with them, but we cannot legally do anything except suggest and ask. And I really hope that nobody interrupts me again.
So do I.
Former school teacher. It's coming out.
You get 35 more seconds if you want to go.
No. Thank you.
Who's next? Michael, you got anything on that one?
And my apologies, I was just, I was going along with
She
you.
was getting on me on that one.
Oh, okay.
No, I was getting on both of you.
Oh, okay. My apologies when you were saying that.
like
I was
a
just
ruler?
mutual aid. But,
Former school teacher, she probably brought one with her.
so, that was very informative, and there's a perfect example of what a good select person does, is gets their facts together. And I've been asking that, and way back when Governor Weld was in office, he had a project like that where he wanted to merge the MDC, the registry, and the Capitol Police all together, and it was a very wise move. And a lot of people told him he can't, and I can understand now why. It gives me inspiration to really research that, because I mean, I hate the word no, it may very well be that hands are where it ends here, and we can't get anywhere with that. So we move on to things that we can work on. But there were 3 agencies in the state level, and they merged the state police, the registry, the MDC, Capitol Police into the Department of State Police. Was it wise to have an administration for each one of those entities? It was ridiculous. It was costing taxpayers a fortune. If what Mr. Teitelbaum is saying is correct, that the only person who can change that is the district or the commissioners of the district, and they would have to go before a legislator to do it, I guess voters don't have any say in it whatsoever, and there's no sense talking about it. But I think that I'll wrap this up real quick. I think in that if you're trying to help your community, sometimes consolidation is the answer. So pride has to, step aside sometimes. I'm not saying cut anybody's job or whatever, but phase them out and consolidate is, But that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next question. Caitlin. Oh, here's a good one.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that comes up a lot. The EDU method of charging for sewer use is inequitable. How would you propose to repair it?
And Judy, you're up on that one. You're first.
Okay, first I would like to correct the statement. The EDU method of charging for sewer use is...
Excuse me.
may be inequitable, okay? And the selectman and the director of the sewer have commissioned a study by Ty and Bond to look at the actual costs of running the sewage treatment plant. So I can't really tell you that it is inequitable. It is a formula that was established by the state. Have we kept up with keeping our data current? The answer is no. We have not, and that has raised some issues with particularly commercial and industrial properties. It's interesting that the sewer is paid for by the users. In some communities, the concept that the sewer is a community betterment, even though you may not be on it, is one that is quite popular. If you belong to the MWRA, you don't have any choice of what you pay. And so your question is really sort of weird, sorry. We are investigating how the charge is being levied. We are investigating whether we should continue this process, which 11% of the communities in Massachusetts do, which is about 37 or 38 towns and cities, still use the EDU system. We also need to look at upgrading particularly the Swiss Beach area, where there's tremendous saltwater infiltration. So how do I propose to repair it? It's a long haul.
And can I just clarify that that's not my question, that was a reader submitted question, so I'm not saying it's
I was going to defend you on that one. Okay, I was going to defend her on that. That wasn't one of Caitlin's questions.
It's a little misleading the way it's written.
Yeah, it might have been better first. Some feel that the method is inequitable. The guy who has the laundromat down in Onset, who pays a huge amount all year long, and he's only doing it, X amount of months out of the year where he's got his strongest amount of business.
Well, laundromats.
Or the summer people that come in and pay the same amount, and they're only there for a month out of the year.
Laundromats actually, under the law, have to recycle their water and reuse it,
Right,
as
but
do
he's
car
still-
washes and stuff like that. But the question of seasonal use versus year-round use is one that we also are looking at in this study. And I would add that we have dedicated one Tuesday in the month until the foreseeable future to discussing sewer business.
Okay,
That was my suggestion.
that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I might have to tune in once in a while. But those are probably the people that find it most inequitable of that class of business or people. Okay, who's next on that one? Mike, you got anything on that one?
Sure. Well, my feeling on sewer use, and specifically when you started, I love that, I bounce over issues back and forth sometimes. That problem solving, John. Can you blame somebody else? Yes, problem solved. Anyway, my feeling on sewer usage, to be fair and equitable to all people who use it, it should be based on what's used. And it's as simple as that. I'm not going to elaborate on that. I think it's self-explanatory. Should a guy be punished because he's running a business only a part of the year and inundated with it? Of course he shouldn't. Of course he shouldn't. Should a person who's here just for the summer, be charged, a flat fee? No, I don't think that's fair either. So to make it fair and equitable to all, it should be a system based on usage, on the individual's usage. And that's all I have to say on that matter.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, we actually held a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and Ty and Bond presented different ways you could assess sewer fees. The first, of course, was the EDU method. What we're working off of, just so people understand, is an EDU rate chart that dates back to 1996. And there's been significant improvements in car washes, laundromats, all sorts of businesses that previously had used a bunch of water. The other thing is that EDU rate schedule from 1996 was developed to be somewhat analogous to the Title V requirements when you put in a septic system. They tried at DEP to sort of mirror the two, to try to anticipate, well, this is what you do, so this is what you should have for capacity. And in terms of you're setting an EDU rate, then this is how many EDUs you should have for that particular use. It's outdated. It doesn't really work. We ran into, of course, an issue when our sewer director went out, and frankly, for the first time in a long time, we had a sewer director who did his job, audited the EDUs, went out and found all kinds of new construction that hadn't been turned into his department, that he hadn't been informed about, and started charging people what they should have been paying under the 1996 rate schedule. This caused a fair amount of angst. But we're looking into that to see whether it's equitable. I know that just because somebody owns an automotive business with 8 bays, I really don't see the connection between 8 bays, for example, and 8 EDUs being assessed. You know, if you're repairing mufflers, people are coming in, they're dropping off their car for the most part and picking it up. The few that hanging around are probably, you know, eliminating the 1 cup of coffee they had when they were sitting there. They're not using the toilet 15 times during the day. As to whether it's fair, we're looking into that. We're looking into probably 3 different scenarios. Sticking with the EDU, looking at a blended rate where you charge a base fee for everybody so that infrastructure is paid for. Remember, the summer people still have to contribute towards what's in the ground, not just the plant operation. And the other way probably is a strict use schedule. So we're looking at all 3 methods. We'll wait for the consultants to tell us.
Okay, thank you. Bill, next question. Oh, do you have
Just
something else
add
to
to that, yeah, please.
Sure.
Even if we were to decide today that the EDU process was not the right one to go with, it is not as easy as flicking a switch and changing it either to the blended or the other way, to the water usage way. It is something that has to be, you have to do all of the math before you figure out which way you're going to go. So it's really complicated. And for those of you who may not know, we didn't say it up front, EDU is equivalent dwelling unit. So it's basically based on one house and, you know, regular occupants. And businesses are charged more depending on how many square feet they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bill.
There's a lot of new businesses moving towards the West Wareham area. What would you propose to do to kind of revitalize the East Wareham, kind of Cranberry Highway area?
Okay, Mike, you're first on that one.
You know, since major highways have been streamlined and whatnot, a lot of the traffic that used to go through Wareham just isn't there anymore. What could I personally do? You know, it's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for you right now. You know, I'd be open to listen to suggestions, because I can't give you a good answer to that. You know, we used to have people that would travel was by car. You know, families used to travel down the Cape, and the main way to get through was through Wareham. You know, we used to have a state trooper detail on every single light going down on Route 6, and they'd sit there with a button and control the traffic control to move it along. You know, but now we got a highway that buzzes right through. So no matter what business you put down there, you know, people can't just pull off the highway and it's kind of a straight shot over the bridge. So our whole the way traffic travels is different now. I've seen more businesses fail, partially because of the economy. You know, I'm guilty of it myself. You know, if I need to get something, sometimes I just run to Walmart. You know, I try to patronize local businesses as much as possible. But I'm not independently wealthy. I'm comfortable. You know, if I'm going to pay $7 here and $2 here, I think everybody knows what the answer is. You know, I economize as much as possible. You know, so it's, I would have to give you a good answer on that, I'd have to listen to the people, get ideas. And I would support anything that is practical and that would help the, help the town of Wareham. Good question, Bill.
Peter.
Yeah, you know, in some ways, we've already undertaken the first step, which is to engage with the state and get municipal support for redoing Cranberry Highway in that area. That road is a death trap, and a lot of people avoid it for that reason alone. It's very dangerous. It's hard to pull in and out. You don't have a divided road, so you're making left-hand turns across oncoming traffic, 2 lanes of it. We get people killed there almost every single year. And we've been batting that around with the state for a number of years. This past year, we finally got the consultants who were designing it to meet with the business owners to show what was going to happen down there. We managed to forestall a lot of the concerns. We managed to work with the state to put in additional cutoffs. And yeah, I was looking at the timeout over there. The referees got the clock wrong. So we managed to, there was one stretch where there was about a 3/4 of a mile stretch without a turnaround in it. We managed to get another turnaround in there because we knew that was going to kill the businesses on one side or the other, depending on what was going to happen. I think what you're seeing out of there is a lot of chain failure. You're seeing that Friendly's left there, Walmart is going up to West Wareham. So what we need to do is to, I think there, is to try to get local type businesses. For example, Mazzilli's, that's where I go to get my dog food since Wareham Feed closed and my dogs like a particular kind of food. They're the only folks in town who have it. That seems to be a pretty thriving business, and they're a local business local people go to. I think that's the direction we need to work in. The other piece to all of this is expanding perhaps Water Whiz, getting ancillary businesses around that. We know it's a big attraction. How do we make that more of a hub for people to come? And Onset Beach generally, the more people we get to Onset Beach, the more people are going to have to come down Cranberry Highway, and the more people will have to, eat there, shop there, get gas there, the whole 9 yards. So it's all sort of a holistic approach.
Hey, Judy?
Yep. I think that the rail service coming through Wareham will benefit East Wareham as well as Onset, as well as West Wareham. It seems to me that Onset is really the jewel in the crown in many ways. The beach is spectacular. There are lots of great, you can walk to them, restaurants, little shops for this and that, ice cream, T-shirts, that kind of thing. So a highway, I look at Route 6 and 28 and the study that was presented to us, when was that, June or something? It was this thick. And I made the comment that 6 and 28 look today like Route 1 in Norwood and Westwood used to look. And it was awful, it was disgusting. Now, that is a divided highway, and it has large car dealerships and large chain stores on both sides. I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen in Wareham, but the state study that has begun, they've begun implementing it. We'll have more turnarounds, we'll have different ways of making the entrances to build to malls more attractive, more obvious to travelers, and to install more lights, which is a biggie. Having stood on Main Street, however, I don't know how fast they're going on Cranberry Highway, but I can tell you they're doing more than 40 through the middle of town. It's just amazing.
That's scary. Okay, is there something?
Yeah.
All right, make it quick. We're running out of time here.
Okay, well, I found that every state study I've ever looked at on any issue almost always contradicts market studies. And based on why businesses are moving from one area to the other is based on market studies. They're not making money in that area. And again, I would assert that, we don't have the traffic flowing through these areas like we once did. They go right over the highway. There's no, oh, geez, there's someplace to eat, or gee, there's someplace I can get this or that. So, it's a good question. It requires research, and I don't base everything I do on studies, but big businesses do, and that's why they move. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? You guys got anything else? You good? All right, Caitlin, you're next. We're down to about 20 minutes.
No.
Yep, we've got 20 minutes left. So, let's see, what am I going to say? Yeah, I'm going to say make them good.
Tempest Fugit.
Caitlin, Bill, both of you pick kind of like your favorite question. Yeah, let's go with the favorite questions out of your bunch, so we make sure we don't just do that. And then if you can do that quickly, if not, then I'm going to give these guys
I'll just ask.
Got one, Caleb?
What role do the selectmen play, if any, in improving Wareham's school system?
Okay, and that starts off with Peter.
Well, the first thing you do is you cease some of the turf battles that we've had in the past. And I think if I had to point to something I'm proud I've been a part of in the past 2 years, this would be in my top 5 list, is the better relationship now between the Board of Selectmen and the school committee than it has been for years. We understand that we're all fighting over the same pie. We understand that revenues are limited. We understand that an increase on the town side is going to take money that the schools would like to have. I think beginning last year, when we went into town meeting with a lot of uncertainty, we went in with a recommendation from our finance committee to actually pass an unbalanced budget that we had the Department of Revenue tell us not to do. I think the process of suspending the money articles at that town meeting, I got to make the motion, and I annoyed a lot of people, and I actually lost a couple of close friends over it. Nonetheless, I think it was the right thing to do. The net effect of that was to actually take money away from our town administrator and put it in the school coffers, because that motion was not going to pass at town meeting, and the schools, as a result of suspending things, ended up with another $400,000. I didn't do it to convey more money to them. I did it to try to resolve a problem. I think in doing that, while it was a difficult task, I think it gave the selectmen some newfound respect among the school committee members. I think it assisted the entire attitude. You know, we're all in this together, and you know, we can continue going down the road of throwing rocks at each other and, you know, fighting over the same piece of the pie. But I think as people who all live in the town, that we need to come together. That's the best thing we can do with the schools. We can't tell them how to run it every day, but we can work with them.
All right. Thank you, Judy.
What role do the selectmen play, if any, in improving Wareham's school system? Well, as Mr. Teitelbaum explained, we now actually have a working relationship with the school as opposed to an adversarial relationship. I am the selectman's liaison to the school, and I regularly go to the school committee meetings. Also, under the law, a selectman can be chosen by the Board of Selectmen to attend executive session meetings of the school, and I am doing that as well. I am sitting on the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, which has been asked to look at different issues, including uniforms in the school. And I regularly talk with not just the superintendent, but some of the members of the school committee. My favorite saying is, my tax bill says Town of Wareham. It doesn't say Town of Wareham School Department and then Town of Wareham Municipal Department. It says Town of Wareham. We're all in this together. The school system improves, real estate values improve. It's a continuum, and it benefits all of us to look for the best system for the school, the best system for delivering municipal services. So personally, I've been really active. I also, every week, mention something positive that I have read or heard about children in our school districts.
Okay, thank you. Mike.
What role do the selectmen play, if any, in improving Wareham's school system? Morally, they play a role in every department. Administratively, very little. I mean, that's why we have a school committee. As Judy puts it, the tax bill says Town of Wareham. You know, I'd argue it doesn't say the Village of Us. I mean, we're supposed to work together morally, you know, for the good of the town as a whole. So my job as a selectman, again, is to vote the voice of the people, and that is as far as actual terms of what we do is we vote on various issues, including the budget. We play a role in various committees, but you know, I am not a formal educator. You know, I like to be educated, you know, so if there is a way that the school committee and the school department feel that, you know, other than, as Judith, Ms. Whiteside rather, put it, being able to attend executive session and be informed of what's going on and nothing's under, you know, I like transparency, you know, and I like people with an open mind, you know, so I don't get irate over people voicing their opinion, whether I agree or disagree, you know. Like I said, we all have our opinions, and everybody sitting at this table, you know, we're not here to make money. We're not here to, you know, we're volunteering our time and various expertise because we care about the community in which we live. Nobody's here for any other reason, you know. And I'm sure we can all find a lot better things to do, but you know, we care about our community, and that's why we're here. So the question is very, very simplistic. I mean, it's a moral obligation to work with all departments, but it's not part of the selectman's job. Thank you. I get the red light, but not the buzzer.
Okay, Bill, do you have one? Which one do you want to do?
Skip ahead a few.
Which one are
bottom of the
you?
page here.
Okay, you read it, and Christian, you're going to catch up with him, right?
Sounds good. Are you in favor of expansion of the sewer system within town?
All right. We're not seeing those at home.
This one starts off with me. Am I up?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, wait a minute. Let's see. You were first the last time, so Judy's next.
Okay.
Sorry.
Could you clarify expansion of the sewer system? What do you mean by expansion?
I think mostly like the old company store area was where I've previously been suggested. No.
Okay. The answer to that question, are you in favor of expansion of the sewer system, is both yes and no. I think it's really important for us to have a properly performing sewer system in the areas that we've already sewered. And that means that we will have to go back and probably look at the 30-year-old pipes that are in the Swifts Beach area, because they are causing us a fair amount of overwork in the plant itself. There are many new technologies that help deal with sewage. And in fact, on Cape Cod, they are discussing the use of toilets that use little water and homes that recycle their gray water ultimately forever. And so that you only drink, you know, purified water or the fresh water. I think that's really the way that the future is going to be in this country, not just in Massachusetts. Cape Cod is basically an island of sand, and therefore water runs through it really quickly. And they've had this problem for many, many years, and they're finally addressing it. The problem being water and sewage in the same place. Of course, they also had Otis Air Force Base, and if you think about some of the things that fall off of airplanes or leak out of trucks, those things probably are already in the water system as well. In terms of Wareham, I think we need to clean up, fix up, and repair what we have, and then look to see whether there are other areas of town that make sense to sewer.
Okay, Mike.
Are you in favor of expansion of the sewer system? Well, you know, unlike potholes driving down the street where we see those things on a regular basis and blow out our tires, if you will, you know, you can't really see the sewer system, you know. I guess you just take for granted that everything's intact and working unless you're told otherwise. So I can't intelligently answer that at the moment because I don't know, you know, the infrastructure of the sewer system. Would I expand it if it were necessary and we were fiscally able to do so by grant or otherwise? You know, I heard it earlier by one of the other contestants, and I agree with that person wholeheartedly in that you know, you can't take grants if it's only going to be for a few years and you've got to maintain it in expanding something. But for things that would expand a whole system and it's just a maintenance thing, that's a different story. You know, grant to put up a building to save the town a ton of money. I'd be in favor of that. You know, if we were consolidating stuff and getting rid of some of the more costly entities, you know. So to answer that question, it would have to be a little bit more refined. I would have to know a little bit more of why we'd have to expand it. You know, I know that I've heard, I don't know, I've just heard that sometimes Pinehurst sewer system is overworked and we have to pump this out elsewhere. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know enough about the water system. You know, I made that point very clear earlier with water districts, but I'm learning, and I always have an open mind to learn. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, just so people understand, currently we're operating under what's called a Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. This was something that the town submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection, which, by the way, does not create mandates to sewer. The only mandates to sewer that ever come about from the federal government under the Clean Water Act. And you can ask everybody who's up around Boston about the history of the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority and how that came into existence to know what the power of the federal courts are in enforcing the Clean Water Act. So they're the only ones who can make you sewer something. The state DEP doesn't do it. That having been said, they do manage, they monitor, they keep an eye on wastewater. It's part of their purview. So we have a plan dating back to 2004 where the selectmen at the time agreed that they were going to sewer certain areas sequentially going forward. It's an open question now as to whether that plan serves our current needs well. So in that regard, most recently our town administrator and Selectman Alan Slavin went up to DEP to talk with the regional head of wastewater about the possibility of amending the wastewater plan. And some of the feedback they got back from DEP was they would like to see an effort made to sewer some of the more of the trailer parks. They were concerned about the old failing septic systems in the trailer parks, that they suggested there be a concentration in that area. As Selectman Whiteside suggested, we have an issue over in Swiss Beach. We have about 150,000 gallons a day of seawater infiltrating into the pipes, carried off to the plant and being treated. When your total plant capacity is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million gallons a day, that's a big chunk of water that's going out for no good reason. And so we need to do repairs there. If we do that, then we'll be able to add more sewer. If we take a look at whether we want to attract business here, a big thing business looks at is sewer available? Right. So there's a lot to be done in this. I think that we need to be careful about it. We need to look at the comprehensive wastewater management plan, and eventually we need to arrive at a consensus as to what to sewer, when, and where.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can I just add to that a little bit?
Okay.
Teeny bit. The sewer is funded through an enterprise fund, and so there is a fair amount of cash in that account, and I don't want people to think that that is available to be spent at town meeting. It is to be spent solely on sewer capital improvements or sewer operations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
If I could add briefly to that, it's probably the one area in town government where through a combination of factors, there's actually some money available for capital needs. It's the one sort of pool of money that, because it is restricted, because the sewer is an enterprise and you can't just spend it in the general government, right. It's the one area where we've actually managed to accumulate some money against the $30 million in costs that we're told by our sewer director that we need to do in the next probably 20 years or so.
Wow.
And if I could briefly add to that, since if there was money available and there was expansion needed, then I'd be in favor of that.
Okay, let's see, we have got about 7 minutes left. So I'm going to give you guys the options. You can either have about a minute or two each, you know, to give a stand on why I should vote for you, or we can go on to another question. So it's entirely up to you guys what you feel like doing. I know you've been sitting for a while. What are we up for?
Oh,
ladies first.
Yeah, ladies, you get to choose.
Okay, I'll choose that we speak, and I'll ask that
Minute
the
45 each.
minute 45 each.
Well, I can run the clock. We can go past it. Not much. Okay, so you want to take about 2 minutes each?
A minute 45.
Take 2 minutes.
I go for 2 minutes. We let her pick. We may as well have 2 minutes.
All right, would you like to go first?
No, I want him to go first.
Me?
Okay, Mike,
oh,
you
great,
go first.
Thanks. I love going first. Normally, I'd be happy with a teleprompter, but I have to put my notes down because I'm all over the chat sometimes. When does my minute start? My minute and 45.
It started about a minute and a half
ago.
ago.
I'm Michael Freites. I'm a
Go ahead,
candidate
you
for the
start.
office of Selectman for the town of Wareham. I'm a property owner at 49 Pinehurst Drive. My main reason for running for office as a selectman is I believe no race, again, should go uncontested and people should have a choice. I want to encourage ordinary people to run for office and in doing so realize it's not their own opinion that matters, but rather those of the people who have elected them. The Constitution guarantees ordinary people the right for any office, including the President of the United States, so aim high, everyone. Vote. I feel, I'm going to forget that part. I'll use social media on any issue that comes before the Board of Selectmen to voice my opinion, and people will be able to access that on my Facebook page, how I feel about it, and I will leave it open for any unedited, comments, because how I feel isn't necessarily how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for how the people, the majority of the people, put their feelings in and whatnot, and that's what I go by, the people. I don't forget who puts me in office. My background's in transportation management, quality control, specifically railroads. I've dealt with multiple collective bargaining agreements in doing such. Very large budgets, multi-million. I'm retired, I'm disabled, I'm an alcoholic and drug addict in recovery. And sometimes I've learned the greatest expertise is being completely broken down and then rebuilding from there. Let's not lose sight of what the Selectman office is about. We're here to vote. We're here to vote on various policies. We do not run the town. We do not run any department in the town. We're here to voice the people that put us in office, and never forget, nobody should ever be a career politician. Everybody sitting at this table is here because they have some love for their communities, and we all offer different expertises and different viewpoints, but never forget the people who put you in office.
Okay. All right. Peter, would you like to go next?
Yeah. I'm running again simply because the 2 years I spent in there so far is nowhere near enough to accomplish the things that I personally set out to do. We've made a good start on rebuilding the relationships with the school committee and the finance committee. We've made a good start on getting more reliable financial information out to the voters, which was something we've been chastised before numerous times by the State Department of Revenue. We've obtained and frankly stumbled upon, because I'm not going to take the credit for somebody who was brought in by somebody else, we sort of stumbled upon a hidden, very talented young town administrator. We had the privilege of hiring him for a 3-year deal beginning this past January. I think that what I'm asking for your vote for is for continuity. One of the problems we've had in this town is that we've bounced back and forth. We've run through town administrators. We've had selectmen get in there and decide that they didn't like somebody who had been hired by a previous selectman, so they targeted them. That's something I've avoided. I really don't care how somebody came to work for the town. I only care that they work for the town, that they put in an honest work day, that they're treated fairly, and that at the end of the day, the taxpayers are getting the greatest bang for the buck. I think we've been a very transparent board the past couple of years. I think we've been a very productive board the past couple of years. Look, there's no doubt that we face serious challenges. We can't mint money. We can't keep things open that we can't afford. But I think that in the main, we've been honest about those facts. We haven't tried to pull financial sleight of hand to fool you into thinking that we're in better shape than we are. And I would ask that essentially you stay the course. And this is going to sound a little bit unusual, but frankly, if one of the two incumbents has to go down, keep Whiteside in there. She's a hell of a worker. She's extremely diligent, and she doesn't put up with any nonsense either.
Wow, right on the buzzer. Judy, how do you
Well, thank you. That's a very tough act
that
to
up?
follow. I have 29 years of banking experience, 4 of it in pension portfolio management, and the rest of it in commercial lending. I was a senior vice president at a bank, and I managed a budget within the bank of more than $50 million on my own. I've been a school teacher in the Wareham public school system for 12 years officially, although I subbed for a couple of years before that. So I have financial experience, and I have experience with the school systems. And even better, I have 10 previous years of experience working very closely with many, many different departments of the town. It's interesting that when I've been standing on the street corner, there are people who roll down the window and I'm not going to do it, but the kids yell, "White side!" And Mr. Teitelbaum goes, "Another one of your students?" and it's fun. I'm running into people that I knew a long, long time ago, and I'm meeting a whole lot of new people. I have experience, and I am a bulldog in terms of getting to the bottom of something. I have created the social media policy. I'm working on an HR policy. I worked on a booklet that is to be used by everybody who's been elected or appointed to a board or commission, so that they know what the laws are, what their responsibilities are, that kind of thing. So I'm a paper person because I like getting things down so that you know what they are. Again, it's been interesting and very much enjoyed meeting Mr. Freitz. I would say that new ideas are great, but experience and having done the job for the past year is probably a better bet for the voters at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. You all done? All set? Good job. All of you, great job. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you for having us.
Let's see, again, thank you to Caitlin and Bill for joining us tonight.
Questions.
Yeah.
They did great.
Questions.
They did great. I gotta tell you, it's pretty courageous when you just come up and say, "You want to come and do this?" Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
So you're nutty enough to survive in this town. Again, welcome to Wareham. I want to thank Paul, Christian, Jay, you were here too. Warren behind the counter over there. We still on the air? Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. Thank the crew again. Mike.
It's my pleasure.
Peter, Judy, thank you for coming out. Everybody at home, go vote, period.
We live in a democracy, not a dictatorship.
That road article is
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
first and foremost.
Yeah, flip the whole
guys.
thing around.
Yeah.
Yeah, vote on everything.
Vote. Vote.
Remember, it is on April Fool's Day, and we're not going to say that that has anything to do with the choices. Or
It's your
anything
fundamental right,
else. But, yeah, go vote.
and you got no excuse to
And
complain if you don't.
Good night.
Thank you.
Get me out of here.
All right.